My girlfriend once told me she hated pretentious rich people more than anything. So for 6 years I pretended to be poor just to date her. Just as I was about to reveal who I really was and propose, I found her kissing another man inside a Ferrari, and she openly admitted to the affair. I stared at my phone, flooded with news alerts and a breakup text from Selena. I gave a cold smirk and told my secretary, from today, cut off everything for Selena. I sat back in my soft CEO's chair, scrolling through the news photos on my phone. In the pictures, Selena was smiling like a flower, sitting in a red sports car, wrapped around a man's neck in a passionate kiss, followed by photos of them entering a hotel together. Selena never even tried to hide it. There were photos from every angle. Oh right, I almost forgot. Given his status now, he probably doesn't need to hide anything anymore. He'd climbed from a nobody D-list actor into showbiz's hottest rising star, and every step of his career went smoothly, no matter the industry or online buzz. People loved his image, and now he'd even landed an endorsement deal with Abel, the internationally renowned brand. His career was skyrocketing. Through it all, no one thought it strange that he was simply enjoying a mutual romance. In fact, people praised him as free-spirited, someone who'd risk everything for love. But no one knew his resources and reputation had all been engineered by me, behind the scenes. I remembered when I first met Brian, he sobbed and told me he refused to endure the dirty rules of showbiz, and the people who made those rules. He swore he would stand in the spotlight with clean hands. It's laughable I actually believed him back then, and stood by him for all these years. Now that he believes he can stand on his own and insists on parting ways with me, so be it, let him go. I put down my phone and said to the secretary standing before me, stop all support for Selena. Also, let those directors know they no longer need to give me face. Just cast normally from now on. Mr. Zhou, I'll handle it properly, please rest assured. The secretary had worked with me for years, he understood exactly what I meant. Didn't Selena hate these dirty rules of showbiz the most? But I was exactly the one who created those rules. I used to shield her from them, but not anymore. Mr. Zhou, one more thing, Abel just sent another invitation. They're sincerely inviting you to attend their launch event. The chairman has also said you must go this time. Otherwise he'll come find you himself. Before this, Abel's head of operations had sent me invitations several times, asking me to attend their launch. But knowing Selena would be there too, I didn't want her to know I was the very industry insider she despised. So I kept declining. Because of this, the chairman of the company, my own father, had called me several times. Over these past years, I'd skipped so many of these events for Selena's sake, that people in the industry started wondering if the CEO of Zhou Corporation had become a monk. It was only then that I finally woke up. I thought about how much manpower I had wasted on Selena resources and time. So I told my secretary, reply to Abel, tell them I'll be there. Oh, and call my father for me too. Tell him Nathan is back, and he doesn't need to worry about the company anymore. He can just focus on enjoying his retirement. Yes. Welcome back, Mr. Zhou. The secretary's face lit up with a relieved smile. Then he left my office, and I changed out of the cheap casual clothes I'd been wearing, and finally had my long-neglected hair properly styled. The next day, as scheduled, I arrived at the Abel launch event. As one of the world's leading cosmetics brands, Abel's launch event was held at the city's most luxurious hotel. Everyone attending that day was practically every notable celebrity and business figure in the region. Reporters from every outlet had the hotel completely surrounded. My secretary parked the car outside the hotel and said, Mr. Zhou, should I call ahead and have him clear out the press? No need, I'm used to it. All those years with Selena, I'd trained myself to disappear into an ordinary man. These reporters were always chasing after all kinds of famous faces. And me, the CEO of Zhou Corporation who'd vanished from the public eye for years, wouldn't even register on their radar. But my secretary still worried, so I told him to go park by himself while I headed straight into the hotel. Sure enough, the reporters were too busy filming the big names on the red carpet to pay any attention to an unfamiliar face like mine. I just handed my invitation to security when a wave of screams erupted behind me, like a tidal wave. Selena! 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 I turned toward the sound and saw Selena stepping out of the red Ferrari, arm in arm with a slick-haired man. She looked especially stunning today, every smile seemed to carry some kind of magic. I'd almost forgotten she had good bones to begin with, and now with Abel's makeup she outshone every other woman there. She was no longer the nobody who used to get pushed around at drinking tables. She greeted the press and fans with practiced ease, her slender pale arm naturally looped through the man's. She looked graceful and elegant, like a little bird nestled beside him. But the moment she spotted me at the entrance, her smile instantly froze. The man beside her noticed her sudden unease and followed her gaze. His eyes met mine directly. This man wasn't entirely a stranger to me. My secretary had shown me his photo before, but I'd been in a rush to prepare Selena's birthday at the time, so I hadn't paid much attention. I never expected to actually see him in person. Compared to Selena's awkward, flustered reaction, his response felt a lot more genuine. He pulled Selena's hand off his arm and instead gripped it tightly, then walked past me like he was making a statement, tossing both invitations into the security guard's hands, saying, "Today is Abel's big day. You'd better do your job properly. Don't let just any random nobody wander in." With that, he shot me a provocative smirk, then pulled Selena inside. Facing his provocation, I just gave a faint smile. Arrogant, blind to everyone around him, that's the disease of most newcomers in this industry. I'd seen plenty of people like him, After they walked in, I stepped into the hotel lobby too. It was clear Abel had spared no expense this time. The entire hotel, floor by floor from the top down, was covered in massive posters of Selena. At the time, I'd only had my secretary casually mention to them that Selena was my girlfriend. I never expected them to take it this far. Selena, walking ahead of me, was surrounded by a crowd the moment she entered the lobby. Most of them were producers and brand representatives, all hoping to gain something from her. Selena seemed to relish being surrounded like this, handling it all with practiced ease. Just as I was looking for my seat, Selena's boyfriend suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He slapped a card into my hand. "I know who you are. You just want money, don't you? Here's 100,000. Now get lost." Heh, 100,000. I turned the bank card over in my hand, staring at him like he was a fool. It seemed I'd been keeping such a low profile these years that even a newcomer like him dared to throw a tantrum in front of me. But my disdain must have looked like greed to him. So Babe was right after all. A guy like you doesn't deserve her love. I'll add another 100,000. Don't ever let me see you around her again or you'll pay a price. Oh, a price? You, some nobody in showbiz, want to make me pay a price? I looked at him mockingly, like I was watching a clown. No one had ever dared to threaten me in my entire life. He'd actually piqued my curiosity. Heh, have you ever heard of Joe Corporation's entertainment division? Let me tell you, I'm about to sign a contract with them. Babe told me you're just some low-level script supervisor. Getting rid of you would take me one phone call. Joe Corporation's entertainment division. Hearing that name, I almost burst out laughing. Wasn't that literally my own company? Since when was I signing him? Wait, that stack of photos my secretary showed me recently? Those were candidates for new signings, but they were only candidates. The final decision was always mine. It was almost funny he'd mistaken under consideration for already signed. Truly, ignorance is bliss. You should be scared now. Face reality, you and Babe don't even live in the same world anymore. Just get lost already. Watching her cruel expression, a wave of disgust rose up in me, and I pulled out my phone to call my secretary. "Hey, Mr. Zhou, I'm already in the underground parking lot heading up now. No rush, I just wanted to ask among the newcomers we're about to sign. Is there someone named—" I stopped mid-sentence, realizing I still didn't even know this guy's name. So I looked at him and asked, "What's your name? Are you kidding me? You don't even recognize me?" He clearly thought he was some big deal and instantly got worked up like a cat whose tail had just been stepped on. I had no patience left for his nonsense, so I said flatly to my secretary, "It's Selena's boyfriend." "Understood, Brian, Mr. Zhou. Rest assured I've already crossed his name off the signing list, and I've reached out to the other agencies too. None of them will sign Brian either." "Good, understood." I made this call just to confirm whether the list my secretary showed me earlier really was the signing list. As for the contract, looks like it really was. Just as I put my phone down, Selena's irritated voice came from behind me. "Nathan, I didn't realize you were this shallow, pulling such a childish stunt." I hadn't bothered lowering my voice during the call, so my entire conversation with my secretary had landed straight in Selena's ears. I hadn't even noticed when she'd walked up behind me. I slowly turned around and saw the angry look on her face. She strode over to Brian and stood beside him, saying to me, "I already made it perfectly clear in my breakup text. We belong to two completely different worlds now. Can you please stop clinging to me? If it's money you want, just call me and I'll send it." "Selena, you don't have to think so highly of yourself. I'm not here for you, and I'm not here for money. In fact, I have nothing to do with you anymore. I'm here because I got an invitation. It's really that simple. Please, you think this is some open market where anyone can just walk in? Did you bribe security to sneak in here or something?" Brian casually grabbed a passing staff member and said, "Hey, this guy snuck in without an invitation. Are you going to do something about it or not?" "I'm sorry, sir. Everyone here is registered under their real name. That's not possible." "You must be mistaken." With that, the staff member walked off. Brian's face darkened. Selena then stepped forward on her own, and in a near-commanding tone said, "Nathan, we're over. I'm asking you to stop causing this scene. Let's just pretend today never happened, or once the event starts, I'll have security drag you out." "Ha! Are you doing me a favor? Should I thank you?" "Enough, Nathan. I don't know how you even got in here. But do you know every single seat here has a name assigned to it? Once the event starts and you don't have a seat, even if I say nothing, the organizers will ask you to leave. I suggest you just go now." The moment Selena finished speaking, Brian's eyes suddenly lit up. He grabbed Selena's arm and said, "Wait, this is way too good a show to miss." Then he shouted to the crowd around them, "Everyone, come look, there's a paparazzi who snuck in here." People are always extra sensitive about paparazzi, so the moment they heard him, a crowd quickly gathered around. And naturally, I became the target of everyone's anger. I glanced around and realized all these people were completely unknown to me, yet they dared to look at me with disgust. Some even hurled insults at me. Selena's face turned uneasy too. She clearly hadn't expected Brian to suddenly draw this much of a crowd, but she wasn't worried about me. She was worried I might reveal what had happened between us and embarrass her, since in her mind I was still that broke script supervisor. So she generously addressed the crowd saying, "Everyone, this is just one of my more obsessive fans. Please don't be too hard on him, just let him leave." Then she turned to me and said quietly, Nathan, just go. If this gets any bigger, it won't end well for you. Nathan, that name. Why does it sound familiar? Selena's voice was faint, but a bystander overheard it anyway. He frowned, thinking hard for a moment, then suddenly realized, I remember now, isn't the CEO of Joe Corporation named Nathan Joe? His words landed on the crowd like a bomb going off. Selena and Brian both stared at me in that instant with disbelief, but I didn't think being recognized here was anything worth bragging about. My expression stayed calm the entire time. Their reactions meant nothing to me. Just as everyone began debating my identity, a middle-aged man dressed like a businessman shook his head. That doesn't add up. I heard Mr. Joe rarely shows up at events like this these days. Not even paparazzi know where he is. He's unlikely to be here. Right, I heard the same. And this time Abel sent Mr. Joe 7 invitations, inviting him again and again, and he never accepted a single one. This guy calling himself Nathan, he's probably a fake. All the seats here are assigned by invitation. Let's all check. If there's no seat for Mr. Joe, that'll prove he's an imposter. The moment the last person spoke, everyone suddenly sprang into action like they'd been electrified, searching frantically through the hall. They flipped through every single seat but couldn't find my name anywhere. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. Especially Selena. The fear and confusion in her eyes had completely vanished, replaced by cold indifference. See, I told you there's no way Mr. Joe would show up without bodyguards. Especially without his personal secretary, Mr. Huang. He's basically Mr. Joe's personal shadow. He never leaves his side. They seemed convinced now that I wasn't the CEO of Joe Corporation, so I became just another paparazzi they could push around. Brian went even further, loudly demanding security throw me out. Just as the chaos on the ground floor was at its peak, a man in an impeccable suit slowly walked down from the second floor. He looked down at the noisy scene below, frowned slightly, then stood on the staircase and shouted, "Quiet!" At the sound of his voice, everyone spun around at once, and the moment they saw who was standing on the stairs, they all gasped and immediately fell silent. I was the only one still smiling, completely unbothered by this man. The moment he stepped off the stairs, Brian and Selena rushed up to him. "Mr. Huang, did the noise downstairs disturb you?" Selena asked carefully, forcing a smile as she followed close behind him. This man was none other than Abel's regional director, and Selena's current benefactor director, Huang. Huang didn't even glance at her. He simply scoffed and said, "I'm here for Mr. Joe. And by the way, don't call me Mr. Huang anymore. Just call me Director Huang from now on." "Director Huang, which Mr. Joe are you talking about?" Brian asked quietly, but Huang completely ignored him. He walked straight toward me. As he approached, everyone around me automatically stepped aside, clearing a path for him. Once Huang reached me, he gave a deep, respectful bow and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Mr. Joe. It was my oversight letting you deal with all this noise." Huang's sudden reaction caught everyone in the room completely off guard. After a long pause, Brian finally snapped out of it and rushed forward, saying, "Director Huang, are you sure you're not mistaken? He's just a script supervisor." Smack! The moment Brian finished speaking, Huang slapped him hard across the face. Then he picked up a nearby glass of champagne, poured it over his hands and washed them, as if that slap had dirtied his hands. "You blind idiot. Do you really think you're in any position to guess Mr. Joe's identity? This way, please." Huang gestured politely. "Mr. Joe, your seat is on the second floor. I've already arranged a private table for you. Let's talk over some food." "Sure." I walked past Brian and Selena and headed up the stairs without so much as glancing at them. That's when my secretary finally arrived, a little late. "Mr. Joe, I've already blocked all of Selena and Brian's commercial deals. I've also finished talking with those directors. Is there anything else you need?" Secretary Wang climbed the stairs in a few quick steps to report to me. I always trusted his work. I flipped through the documents briefly and handed them back. "Look into who all these people downstairs are and handle it accordingly. I just had to swallow so much frustration down there, it's time to settle the score with them too." The secretary nodded coldly at my words. I could tell he already had a plan in mind. By now, beads of sweat had formed on Huang's forehead. His status was high, sure, but it depended on who he was compared to. In front of me, his rank as Abel's regional director still wasn't quite enough. The moment I went upstairs, the whole floor below erupted. No one had expected my identity to actually be real. Brian regretted it so much he could have kicked himself, wishing he could slap himself repeatedly, but it was already too late for that. Selena stood frozen in place, staring blankly as Huang escorted me into the very important person room with the utmost respect. After all, even as Abel's brand ambassador, she still wasn't qualified to sit at the same table as Huang. Not long after, Selena's phone suddenly rang. It was her manager. Selena, still dazed, picked up the phone and held it to her ear. Instantly, her manager's furious voice blasted through. "Selena, who did you offend? Several directors who already signed contracts just backed out completely, and a few upcoming endorsements just called to cancel too. What did you do?" Hearing her manager's words, Selena finally snapped back to reality and looked up in terror toward the second floor. Before she could even say a word, her manager kept shouting, "Selena, I'm telling you, I don't care who you offended, go apologize to them right now. Find a way to make them forgive you, or you can kiss your career goodbye." Click. The call cut off. Selena was completely stunned. Ever since she'd gotten involved with me, her career had sailed smoothly. Her manager had practically worshipped her. Now, facing a problem like this, she was completely lost. with no idea where to even start. At the same time, the phones of Brian and everyone else on the ground floor began ringing off the hook. As they answered, one after another, their faces turned pale. Almost instantly, these were probably the most terrifying calls they'd ever received in their lives. The moment Brian put down his phone, the light in his eyes completely faded, replaced by a hollow, lifeless despair. His proudest films had just been frozen, all at once. Even the production he was about to join informed him he was no longer needed. Worse still, he could forget about ever signing with Joe Corporation. In one blow, his entertainment career had been effectively destroyed. From that day forward, he no longer belonged to this industry. Meanwhile, I had already walked into the very important person room with Huang. Sure enough, a full table had been set for a banquet. But what caught me completely off guard was that someone was already seated calmly at the table. The moment I saw him, I froze, and the words slipped out, "Dad? Weren't you in the Maldives? Why are you suddenly back?" That's right, sitting there was none other than the highest authority in all of Joe Corporation, and also my father, Chairman Joe. Ever since I'd taken over at the company, he'd retired to the Maldives. Every year, I made time to visit him. But ever since I got together with Selena, I hadn't gone in years. I never expected him to come back. If I hadn't come back to check on you, you'd have run this whole company into the ground. My father let out a low grunt, then waved me over to sit beside him. Huang and my secretary both had the good sense to step aside, not daring to intrude on our father-son conversation. "Nathan, I've heard everything. Letting a woman affect the company's performance, that's not like you at all. And what's even more ridiculous is that she dumped you on top of it. If this got out, do you have any idea how much damage it could do to us?" "I know, Dad. I'm already working on fixing it." I admit I lost my head for a while. If it weren't for Secretary Wang's diligent management, the company's performance would probably be far worse right now. But now that I've come to my senses, this small setback can still be recovered. What good is just fixing it? Let me tell you, I came back to settle your future once and for all. So no one can ever exploit your feelings again. Wait, seriously? The CEO of Joe Corporation, facing an arranged marriage? I said, feigning shock as I looked at my father. I knew he wouldn't just marry me off to anyone at random, but he also knew I wasn't someone who followed every arrangement he made either. Just then, a sweet voice suddenly rang out from behind the screen in the very important person room. "Nathan, what if it's me? Would that satisfy you?" The moment I heard that voice, I instinctively shivered. I immediately recognized the voice Vivian. If there was one person I'd feared my whole life, she was absolutely number one. Vivian's family, the Liu Corporation, had long been a sister company to ours, and Vivian and I had practically grown up together. She'd just always been wilder than me, even crazier when it came to playing around, which is why her father eventually sent her abroad to study. I never expected she'd be back too. As her voice trailed off, Vivian indeed stepped out from behind the screen. The moment I saw her, I was instantly stunned. In my memory, she was still that skinny, suntan girl with two braids pinning me to the ground and beating me up. I never expected that after just a few years apart, she would transform into such a graceful young woman. I couldn't stop staring at her, her cheeks flushing bright red. She quickly ran over to my father's side, wrapping her arms around his shoulder. "Uncle Joe, seems like Nathan isn't listening to you." "He wouldn't dare." My father slapped the table, about to lose his temper. Vivian immediately started rubbing his shoulders to calm him, then turned to me and said, "Nathan, you see that, right? You really can't go against Uncle Joe's wishes." Watching the two of them put on this little act, I found it genuinely exhausting. I had no choice but to agree, at least for now. With the Belle's launch about to begin, I headed out with my secretary and Vivian, and the moment we stepped out of the very important person room, the hallway outside was packed with people. The instant Brian saw me, he rushed over and dropped to his knees, trying to grab onto my leg, but Secretary Wang held him back with one hand. His face was already streaked with tears and snot. My clothes were extremely expensive. If he'd smeared that all over them, it would have been a disaster. "Nathan, I'm begging you, give me a way out. I was blind before. From now on, I'll do whatever you say." In that moment, he looked exactly like a stray dog with nowhere to go, not a trace left of his earlier arrogance. I glanced down at him for a moment, then let a faint smile spread across my face. "Bark for me." Brian never expected me to suddenly demand that he bark like a dog, and he froze in place for a moment. By the time he snapped out of it, I had already walked right past him. Realizing he had no other choice, he immediately dropped to the floor and started barking, "Woof, woof, woof." The sound was so loud it echoed through the entire hallway. "Not bad, you bark quite well, though I've never been short on dogs around me." I gave a mocking smile and turned to head downstairs. Brian looked exactly like a dog with a broken spine, collapsed limply on the floor, while countless cameras clicked away around him. Since it was a product launch, there were official photographers assigned, of course, and before they even got to photograph the product, they'd already captured the shocking scene. This kind of story was worth just as much as a Belle's product launch itself. After today, the news would turn Brian into a complete laughingstock in the industry. But honestly, what did it matter? Plenty of people had already become jokes at my hands over the years. The moment I got downstairs, Selena blocked my path at the bottom of the stairs. Her eyes were red, clearly from crying. If this had happened before, seeing her like this would have broken my heart completely. But now, I felt nothing but calm, even a bit of impatience. "Nathan, why are you doing this to me?" Her opening line alone left me utterly stunned. She was the one who dumped me first, and now she was turning it around asking me why I was doing this to her. I had no patience left to argue with her, so I waved for Secretary Wang to hold her back, and headed toward the central stage on the ground floor. Selena, still oblivious to how much trouble she was in, kept shouting, even willing to expose our history in front of everyone. And just like that, everyone in the room found out that the CEO of Joe Corporation had given up his entire family legacy for a D-list actress for a full 5 years. This story's impact was every bit as massive as Brian barking like a dog in public. Just before stepping onto the stage, I glanced back at Selena one last time. Whatever last shred of pity I had left for her vanished completely. The woman standing there now was nothing like the person I once knew. I even started to wonder whether the woman I'd spent all those years with was ever really this person at all. She kept screaming hysterically, insisting that everything I'd once done for her should be made public, one by one. And just as she was in the middle of her passionate outburst, Vivian suddenly shoved her expensive designer bag into Huang's hands, stepped forward, and slapped Selena across the face. Smack! The crisp sound echoed through the entire hall. Selena's frantic screaming stopped instantly. "Nathan is my fiancé. He has been for the past 5 years. I have no idea what crazy person you even are. But if you insult my fiancé one more time, I will sue you." Vivian's commanding presence silenced everyone in the room, myself included. If I'd had any lingering doubt about her before this moment, I could now confirm with absolute certainty that this was indeed the same girl who used to pin me down and pummel me as a kid. Selena, having just been slapped, had half her face swelling red instantly, while Vivian acted as if nothing had happened. She took her bag back from Huang, walked over, and looped her arm through mine, pinching the soft flesh at my waist as she muttered fiercely, "You idiot, your taste is terrible. If I hadn't cleaned up your mess today, you'd be completely ruined." I gave a faint smile and covered her hand with mine. "Don't worry, it won't happen again." The press captured this loving moment between us, and by tomorrow it would be splashed across every headline. Taking advantage of the Abel launch, I announced to all the reporters that I would officially take over Joe Corporation, and that in just a few days, at this very hotel, I would marry my fiancée Vivian, putting an end to our 5-year relationship with a wedding. For the entertainment industry, this news landed like another bombshell. At the very least, all those idols and starlets hoping to marry into wealth could give up that dream entirely. Vivian also took the stage during the launch, telling a fabricated love story that was, admittedly, genuinely touching. But only the two of us knew none of it was real. Still, what did it matter, as long as the outcome was good? Ladies and gentlemen, due to Ms. Selena's recent conduct, we will be ending our partnership with her. Our new brand ambassador will be Ms. Vivian Liu. With a wave of Huang's hand, Vivian walked up onto the stage with a warm smile, delivering her remarks to the press with effortless grace. Meanwhile, Selena sat slumped on the floor like a discarded doll, abandoned by its owner, her eyes filled with lifeless ash. Abel's staff, taking advantage of Vivian's speech, quickly swapped out every one of Selena's posters, replacing them entirely with Vivian's portraits. The torn-down posters of Selena were carelessly tossed onto some forgotten corner of the hotel floor, just as worn out and useless as Selena herself, sitting there now. I assumed Selena would finally give up after this, but to my surprise, she instead took to the internet, crying about her situation, painting me, in her version of events, as the heartless man who threw away 5 years of love to pursue an arranged family marriage. Her blind fans had completely forgotten how affectionate she'd been with Brian just days earlier, and instead turned every bit of their outrage on me. But honestly, none of it affected me any more than a light drizzle. No matter how much they attacked me online, it had zero negative impact on me. On the contrary, thanks to all that public outrage, Joe Corporation actually received a wave of free publicity, and every artist and business under our name benefited from it. But just because I didn't care didn't mean no one else did. Secretary Wang asked me whether he should step in and teach Selena a lesson. I declined. It wasn't because I still held on to any old feelings for her, but because going after Selena at this particular moment, if twisted and exploited by the wrong people, could still cause some damage to the company. What I hadn't expected, though, was that while Secretary Wang held back, Vivian went ahead and dealt with it openly, without hesitation. She first publicly called out those mindless fans online, then hired a team of online commenters to push the footage from the Abel launch onto the trending page. Nothing was more convincing than actual video footage. Unfortunately for Selena, she'd cut ties with me so cleanly when we broke up that she couldn't produce a single photo of the two of us together, which left her completely at a disadvantage in the court of public opinion. And the very fans who once fiercely defended her now became the sharpest blade turned against her, cutting her down completely. Without a doubt, this battle ended in Vivian's total victory once again. When she strutted into my office like a proud little fighting hen, I didn't waste a single word. I simply pulled her into my arms and kissed her deeply. It was only now that I finally understood what I truly wanted, and who I truly loved. Vivian never had to do any of this for me, yet she stirred up this much of a storm on my behalf, even using her position as the heiress of Liu Corporation, and as the future wife of Joe Corporation's CEO, to speak up for me publicly. If I didn't fall completely in love with someone like her, I'd truly be a fool. Vivian was caught off guard by how suddenly I'd pulled her in, freezing in my arms for a moment, but then she completely melted into it, savoring every second. "Let's get married." It was a while before we finally pulled apart, and breathless, I finally said those words to her. Her cheeks flushed a soft pink as she gave a shy, quiet nod, not saying anything at all. With both our families working together, the wedding took place at the hotel, right on schedule. Since Vivian's father had no other children, our marriage meant the Liu Corporation would officially merge with Zhou Corporation, and with the combined strength of both companies, dominating the region's entertainment industry wouldn't be a problem at all. And thanks to a series of moves I made behind the scenes, Vivian quickly rose to become the industry's biggest breakout star. Countless celebrities began publicly expressing interest in working with her, and directors even started delivering scripts straight to her door for her to choose from. At the wedding, I received a red envelope from Selena. I didn't open it myself, I handed it straight to Vivian instead. Sure enough, inside was a threatening letter from Selena. It claimed that if I didn't get back together with her, she would jump off a building. I obviously didn't take a threat this childish seriously at all. Amid a warm, joyful atmosphere, the wedding was completed without a hitch. Later on, Secretary Wang mentioned Selena's situation to me. In the end, she never found the courage to actually go through with it, but by then she had no resources left at all. Not a single agency was willing to sign her, and she even had to pay off massive breach of contract penalties. Under all that pressure, she eventually turned to filming adult content. As for Brian, his situation turned out even worse than Selena's. These days, he'd become nothing more than a plaything passed around wealthy women, barely able to get a decent night's sleep, completely drained inside and out, reduced to little more than a hollow shell. I sat in my office, looking over the documents Secretary Wang had brought me, my mind completely at ease. So much time had passed since then that I no longer felt anything toward either of them. Just then, a pair of pale, slender arms quietly wrapped around my shoulders from behind. Vivian pulled me into an embrace, her delicate face leaning in close beside mine. "Nathan, are you thinking about rekindling old flames?" I tossed the documents onto the desk and laughed. "Not at all," I said, still smiling. "Just reading a joke." With that, I leaned in and kissed her. After a long moment, our lips parted, and Vivian wrapped her arms around my neck, leaning in close to my ear, whispering softly, "Congratulations, you're going to be a father."